My name is Gregory. I'm 58, a factory supervisor in a quiet Ohio community. My wife, Beverly, and I had been married for 27 years. We raised 2 kids who now lived in different states, and like a lot of couples our age, we were learning what an empty house felt like. People think long marriages fall apart because of dramatic betrayals. Sometimes it's something much smaller. 3 months ago, a delivery driver dropped a package at our front door. I remember it clearly because I was mowing the lawn when it arrived. Beverly stepped outside, signed for it, and carried it into the house before I could even shut off the mower. Nothing unusual there. Except the package wasn't addressed to us. I noticed that much when she brought it inside. Neighbors? I asked. Probably, she said. I'll take care of it. Simple answer. End of story. Or so I thought. A few days later I asked whether she'd returned it. She looked distracted. Not yet. A week later, same answer. Then I forgot about it. Life has a way of burying small questions under larger responsibilities. But over the following months, little things started bothering me. Beverly became unusually protective of the hall closet near our bedroom. She wasn't secretive by nature. We had shared bank accounts, calendars, and passwords for years. Now she would casually close the closet door whenever I walked by. Once, while putting away towels, I found it locked. Locked. In 27 years, that closet had never needed a key. I didn't accuse her of anything. Men my age have learned that assumptions are expensive. Facts matter. Still, I started paying attention. One Saturday afternoon, our daughter Claire called. During the conversation she casually mentioned that Beverly seemed stressed lately. That caught my attention. Because Beverly hadn't told me she was stressed. That evening, I watched my wife sit on the back porch staring across the yard. She looked worried. Not guilty. Not angry. Worried. There's a difference. What's on your mind? I asked. She forced a smile. Nothing. I've been married long enough to know that nothing can carry the weight of a freight train. The next morning, while looking for an extension cord in the garage, I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. The shipping label from that old package was sitting in our recycling bin. And the name printed on it wasn't our neighbor's. I had never heard the name before in my life. I thought I finally had a simple explanation. I was wrong. What I discovered later that day made the package seem like the least important mystery in my house. The name on the shipping label stayed in my head all morning. Not because it sounded familiar. Because it didn't. In a neighborhood where everyone knew everyone, a completely unknown name stood out like a flashing light. I didn't confront Beverly. Not yet. Instead, I did what any calm, self-respecting husband should do. I gathered facts before drawing conclusions. That afternoon, while Beverly was visiting her friend Denise, I checked the recycling bin again. The label was still there. The package had been mailed from a financial services company. That surprised me. Not a retailer. Not a pharmacy. Not some online order. A financial company. Now my attention sharpened. Over the years, Beverly and I had always handled money together. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. Our mortgage was nearly gone. Our retirement accounts were organized. There shouldn't have been mysteries. Yet here was a package from a financial firm addressed to someone I'd never heard of. I wrote down the company name. That evening, I casually brought up retirement planning over dinner. Beverly nearly dropped her fork. Just a tiny reaction. Most people wouldn't have noticed. I did. Everything okay? I asked. Of course. Her answer came too quickly. For the next few days, I quietly reconstructed a timeline. The package arrived 3 months earlier. Around the same time, Beverly had started making occasional trips across town. Nothing frequent enough to look suspicious. Just enough to seem different. Then another piece fell into place. Our son Nathan called one evening. During the conversation, he mentioned that his mother had recently asked unusual questions about assisted living communities and long-term care options. That stopped me cold. We had never discussed assisted living. Not once. After the call ended, I sat alone in the kitchen. Men, what would you think? A secret financial package. New worries about retirement. Questions about long-term care. A wife who suddenly claimed everything was fine. None of it added up. The following Saturday, Beverly left early to run errands. While organizing paperwork in our home office, I noticed a folder tucked behind an old tax binder. It wasn't hidden well. Almost as if someone had placed it there in a hurry. Inside were several printed documents. I wasn't snooping through her purse. I wasn't breaking into anything. The folder was sitting in a shared office in our shared home. The first page carried the same company logo that had appeared on the shipping label. My pulse slowed instead of speeding up. That's what happens when you've lived long enough. Panic solves nothing. I turned the page. Then another. By the third page, I realized this wasn't evidence of an affair. It was something far more confusing. The documents contained detailed financial projections. But they weren't for Beverly. And they weren't for me. They were prepared for someone else entirely. Someone whose connection to my wife made absolutely no sense. I thought I was finally getting answers. Instead, I had a brand new question. And this one was bigger than all the others combined. For the next hour, I sat at my desk staring at those documents. The name appeared over and over. Not mine. Not Beverly's. Not our children's. A man named Walter Mercer. 69 years old. Projected retirement expenses. Healthcare estimates. Long-term care scenarios. Who was Walter Mercer? And why was my wife involved in planning his future? I didn't jump to conclusions. Long marriages teach you that imagination is often more dangerous than reality. Instead, I started reconstructing a timeline. 3 months earlier, the package. Shortly afterward, Beverly's unusual concern about retirement facilities. Then the private trips across town. And now these documents. The puzzle pieces fit together, but the picture still made no sense. That evening, I called my sister-in-law, Pamela. She and Beverly had always been close. I kept the conversation casual. Halfway through, Pamela accidentally gave me my next clue. Beverly's been carrying a lot lately, she said. I sat up straighter. What do you mean? A long pause. The kind people make when they realize they've said too much. Maybe you should talk to her. Not exactly an answer. But not a denial either. The next day, I decided to observe rather than speculate. Beverly left the house around 10 in the morning. I waited several minutes before driving into town. I wasn't following her like a detective in a movie. I simply wanted facts. Her car was parked outside a small office building. Not a restaurant. Not a hotel. An office. I stayed in my truck across the street. 40 minutes later, she came out accompanied by an older man. Gray hair. Thin frame. Walking with a slight limp. Walter Mercer. I knew it before I even heard the name. What struck me wasn't romance. It was concern. Beverly looked worried. Protective. Almost responsible for him. The two spoke for a minute before separating. My wife drove home. The man left in another vehicle. That afternoon, I finally decided enough was enough. When Beverly returned from grocery shopping, I met her in the kitchen. No raised voice. No accusations. No drama. Just facts. I know about Walter Mercer. The color drained from her face. For several seconds she simply stared at me. Then she looked away. That told me more than any speech could. Who is he? I asked. Silence. Beverly. Her hands trembled slightly. I can explain. Then explain. Instead, she sat down and covered her eyes. Not anger. Not guilt. Fear. Real fear. The kind that builds when someone has been carrying a burden for far too long. Finally she spoke. It isn't what you think. I almost laughed. Every husband on earth has heard those words. The problem was that I no longer knew what I thought. Because nothing about this situation matched any explanation I could imagine. Then Beverly whispered a sentence that changed everything. Gregory. Walter is connected to something I should have told you years ago. Years. Not months. Years. At that moment, I realized the package had never been the real secret. It had only exposed one that had been waiting in the shadows for a very long time. And I still had no idea whether our marriage was about to survive it. I stood there for several seconds after Beverly spoke. Years. That single word carried more weight than everything I'd discovered so far. I pulled out a chair and sat across from her. If we're going to do this, I said calmly, we do it honestly. She nodded but couldn't meet my eyes. For nearly a minute, neither of us spoke. Then Beverly took a deep breath. When I was 22, before I met you, my father made a decision that hurt someone badly. That wasn't where I expected the story to begin. She explained that her father had owned a small business decades ago. During a difficult financial period, one of his employees had been forced out under circumstances Beverly later learned were unfair. That employee was Walter Mercer. I listened without interrupting. Years later, after her father passed away, Beverly discovered old records and personal letters hidden among his belongings. The documents revealed that Walter had suffered significant financial hardship after losing that job. Her father had always intended to make things right. He never did. Beverly found the letters almost 8 years ago. 8 years. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Tears formed in her eyes. Because I was ashamed. Ashamed. Not of something she had done. Of something connected to her family. She explained that she eventually contacted Walter. At first, it was only to apologize for what had happened. But over the years she learned he had no close family left. No children. No one helping him navigate retirement decisions. No one advocating for him. What began as a conversation slowly became a responsibility. Then came the part that hit me hardest. The financial plans weren't for him alone, she said quietly. What do you mean? She swallowed. I've been using some of my inheritance to help him. The room fell silent. Not our shared retirement savings. Not hidden debt. Money she had inherited from her father. Money she legally controlled. Yet she had concealed it from me for years. That was the wound. Not the dollars. The secrecy. I leaned back in my chair. Did you think I would stop you? Her expression crumpled. No. Then why hide it? The answer came immediately. Pride. Not greed. Not betrayal. Pride. She thought she could carry the burden alone. She thought protecting me from the situation was somehow helping our marriage. Instead, the silence had slowly damaged the trust between us. For the first time since this began, I could see the entire picture. A misdelivered package. Hidden paperwork. Fear. Shame. Years of secrecy built around a mistake that wasn't even hers. But there was still one question I needed answered before we could move forward. And when I asked it, Beverly broke down completely. Her answer would determine whether we rebuilt our marriage, or watch 27 years crack under the weight of one final truth? The question was simple. Why were you suddenly looking into assisted living facilities? Beverly lowered her head. For a moment, I thought she might refuse to answer. Then the tears came. Not dramatic tears. Not manipulative tears. The kind that appear when someone is exhausted from carrying fear for too long. Because Walter's health is getting worse, she said. And because I was afraid. Afraid of what? She finally looked me in the eyes. Afraid that one day you might need the same help. The room went quiet. She explained everything. Helping Walter had forced her to confront something she had spent years avoiding. Aging. Retirement. Loss. The reality that neither of us was 30 anymore. While researching care options for Walter, she had started imagining worst-case scenarios for us. For me. For our future. Instead of talking to her husband, she buried those fears and tried to solve everything alone. The package had contained updated financial documents connected to Walter's care planning. When it was delivered to our house by mistake, panic took over. Every secret she had protected for years suddenly felt exposed. I wasn't protecting money, she said. I know. I wasn't choosing him over you. I know. I just didn't know how to tell you. That was the real tragedy. Not deception for personal gain. Not betrayal. A communication breakdown fueled by pride and fear. Two enemies that have damaged more marriages than most people realize. I sat quietly for a long moment. Then I asked the question that mattered most. From this day forward, are there any more secrets? She shook her head immediately. No. None. None. I believed her. Not because trust magically repairs itself. Because after 27 years, I knew when Beverly was telling the truth. That weekend we did something we should have done months earlier. We sat at the kitchen table for nearly 6 hours. No phones. No television. No distractions. We reviewed every account, every document, every concern, every fear. For the first time, Walter's situation became our responsibility instead of hers alone. A month later, I met him personally. He wasn't a threat to my marriage. He was an aging man who had spent years facing life largely by himself. Together, Beverly and I helped him organize a practical support plan and connect with community resources. More importantly, Beverly and I created a trust rebuilding plan of our own. Complete financial transparency. Regular conversations about retirement. No carrying burdens in silence. No protecting each other from truths we deserve to share. Our children, Claire and Nathan, noticed the difference almost immediately. The tension disappeared. The distance faded. The partnership returned. Marriage doesn't survive because two people avoid mistakes. It survives because two people choose honesty when mistakes are revealed. Looking back, the package wasn't the crisis. It was the warning. A warning that silence had started replacing communication. And silence is where fear grows. Today, Beverly and I are stronger than we were before all this happened. Not because the problem was small. Because we finally faced it together. I forgave her from a position of strength, and she accepted responsibility with humility. Neither of us won the argument. Our marriage did. What if the real danger wasn't another person, but years of silence hiding behind good intentions? One husband followed the facts, not his fears, and discovered a truth that nearly cost him everything before it ultimately saved his marriage.